One of the things I love doing the most on this show is reading about the bizarre creatures, strange accounts, and the odd happenings around the world. Stories and tales of strange creatures sometimes can give you a much-needed fantastical escape from the normal day-to-day, and is more especially true now during these extreme times. This whole strange series of events begins in the small town of Van Meter, Iowa, in the year of 1903. On September 29th of that year, there would be something that rattled the unusually uneventful daily life of this rural community when a tool dealer named U.G. Griffith was on his way home after midnight and had noticed a strange point of light from atop a nearby building. He had lived in the town all his life and never saw that peculiar light before. His curiosity was piqued enough for him to not go home to his meal in bed that waited for him, in order to drive down the road to see what the source of the light was, thinking that it might be some thieves or kids out and up and about to no good. As he approached it, the light moved all the way across the street to another rooftop, as if it had just simply flown through the air. It would have been impossible for pranksters or a burglar to do something like that, and the increasingly baffled Griffith tried to work over in his head what could possibly be going on. The light soon jumped away again off into the night, and he was left sitting in the dark pondering what he had just seen. The next day, Griffith told everybody else in town about the strange floating light he'd seen, and most people believed him, because he was, by all account, an honest and well-respected member of the community. But things would get pretty interesting the following evening. In the early hours of September 30th, 1903, Van Meter's own doctor, Dr. Alcott, was awoken by what he would claim to be a piercing bright beam of light shining right in his face from beyond a nearby window. The doctor jumped awake and ran outside to see what it was. He grabbed a gun in the event that if it was trespassers, he'd be able to have something to protect himself. And there he saw the light of a tall humanoid form framed by bat-like wings and a single horn on top of its head, from which the light shot forth. The doctor didn't hesitate to fire his weapon at the monster, reportedly shooting it a total of 5 times, and none seemed to have any effect on whatever it was, and it remained standing there in the murky dark without so much as flinching. The doctor then allegedly went back home, locked the doors, and when he thought to glance back out into the night, the thing was gone. When this report was brought forward, it was mostly believed again, and this was a respected doctor. It didn't take too long for the citizens to put 2 and 2 together to figure Alcott and Griffith's strange sighting of the thing on the rooftop was something beyond our understanding. This would only be exacerbated by yet another sighting of something decidedly weird the following day in the early morning hours of October 1st. The manager of the town bank, Clarence Dunn, was walking on his way to the bank to check up on things, thinking that there may be robbers to blame for the recent strange sightings. When he reached the bank, he settled in with a shotgun he'd brought with him and waited for anything to happen at all. He wouldn't be disappointed. At around 1 a.m., Dunn heard a strange sound from outside that reportedly sounded like someone gasping for air or being strangled. He sat there in the dark, clenching his shotgun, when the shadows suddenly were banished by a beam of light that penetrated the darkness, and he could see that its source was some shadowy figure lurking outside. Without thinking, he supposedly fired his weapon at the beast, which then fled away into the night. Dunn was absolutely sure he hit the intruder, but the following day there would be no trace of it and no blood, except for a very few footprints described as having only 3 toes. Apparently a plaster cast was made of the tracks as well, although no one had any idea what could have made them, and nobody knows where this cast went. The next evening, a very strange, shrill, unearthly wail reminiscent of scraping, grinding metal woke a local hardware store owner named O.V. White from his sleep, and he was quick to grab a rifle he had been keeping handy in the face of the reports of some strange creature or intruder roaming the night. When he looked through his window, he could see a strange dark figure perched on top of a telephone pole about 15 feet away. White would apparently take aim and fire to score a direct hit, but this only caused it to snap its head up to gear at him as if irritated. It was then that White would later claim he had been overwhelmed with a stench that hit him like a wave, and it was so strong as to make him dizzy, eventually making him lose consciousness. Now, all the noise woke one Sidney Gregg, another local co-owner of the hardware store, and he went to investigate. Once he had gotten out onto the street, he noticed a humanoid-winged creature descending from the telephone pole, apparently using its large beak to climb. When it reached the ground, it stood up to reveal that it was around 8 feet tall and had legs similar to a kangaroo, and from its forehead leapt a light as powerful as, he was quoted, an electric headlight. It looked around at its surroundings for a couple of minutes, then bounded away into the night in a series of leaps and jumps, finally taking to the air using its wings. This whole strange saga would continue on the following evening of October 3rd, when a J.L. Platt Jr., manager of a tile and brick factory on the outskirts of town, had his attention drawn to a series of strange noises coming from an abandoned coal mine nearby at around 1 a.m., which would be described colorfully as sounding like Satan and a regiment of imps were coming forth for a battle. When Platt went to investigate this strange sound, he would purportedly come face to face with the winged beast looming at one of the entrances to the mine, this time accompanied by what seemed to be a smaller one of the creatures, both of which emitted a brilliant light from its horns on their head. The two creatures supposedly then took flight to fly out of sight. Word got out pretty quickly about this sighting, and there are many who came to the conclusion that the old abandoned mines were maybe the lair of the creature or creatures. After all, the mines extended underground into an extensive spider web of tunnels and caverns, and they would have been perfect for such monstrosities to take refuge within. A cadre of heavily armed men, carrying whatever they could as far as weapons, set up a camp right there at the mine's entrance, keeping a vigil on the lookout for the creatures if they decided to come back. The bat-like humanoid creatures, with their glowing horns, actually returned the following evening, again at around 1 a.m., and when they were sighted, the group waiting for them didn't hesitate to fire in unison. Strangely, none of this seemed to have any effect at all, and one newspaper report would say, "The reception they received would have sunk the Spanish fleet, but aside from the unearthly noise and peculiar odor, they did not seem to mind it, but slowly descended the shaft of the old mine." After this, the mine was barricaded, and the creatures were apparently never seen again. But the stories lived on, with the tale told and retold throughout generations, and the events immortalized in newspaper reports, and it's even in the town's centennial book. The ones truly to thank for bringing this strange case to the masses are Chad Lewis, Noah Voss, and Kevin Lee Nelson, who wrote the highly acclaimed book The Van Meter Visitor, A True and Mysterious Encounter with the Unknown, where most of the information available comes from, and radio interviews on shows such as Coast to Coast AM. Sadly, there's no proof whatsoever that this creature ever existed outside of an urban legend, and all we have to go on are the old stories, hearsay, and news reports from an era where exaggeration and fantastical stories were par for the norm. The only thing that could have possibly been considered physical evidence was the plaster cast supposedly taken of the thing's three-toed clawed footprints, but this is long since gone, and if it ever existed at all. Of course, this hasn't affected the popularity of the monster, nor has it kept people from speculating as to what the creatures could have been. Of course, there are many theories about what the Van Meter Visitor was, such as an interdimensional being crossing between realms, just a strange visitor that happened to make a pit stop. Whatever it was, ghost, alien, strange animal, or interdimensional being, it still continues to be a strange case that has never adequately been solved. So what do you think of the Van Meter Visitor? Leave it in the comments down below, and give us a like if you can on your way out, and hit that subscribe button, and join us on Monday for another The Unknown Files here on Unknown Territory.